All right, what's going on, everybody? Here we are for the season one awards show. I am Rocker Man, the director of Nemesis, and I will be your host tonight for this awards show. And I am happy to be joined by one of my friends here, the commentator from the Challenger League team Vortex, Eminem. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, and thanks, Rocker Man. This season's definitely going to be remembered as the seasons go on. It's going to be one of the best ones for sure. It was a great season, and I'm very glad to be a part of this true greatness of a league.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Also, we're joined by season one Rivalry All Star Linty from Arrival. What's going on, Linty?
Thanks, Rocker Man. It's been an honor to participate within Nemesis. I'm looking forward to tonight, and I'm looking forward to the future of the league.
All right, and then Chipmunk, our mainstream and editor, is also here from Vortex. He's going to be taking care of all of the videos and transitions you see tonight. Chipmunk, what's going on?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to get things going. It's been a great season. Been crazy. A first season that's been a lot of stuff has happened. A lot of crazy games, some playoff masterpieces, some insane goals, insane saves, some great MVP caliber performances. It's been a pretty crazy season, and it should be interesting. Before we get things started, gotta give a couple of shout outs. We got Eminem, obviously one of our guys here. Eminem, thank you again for the resub. Also, thanks to Foam and Control Delete. Thank you guys for the resubs. Much appreciated. But yeah, looking forward to tonight. We've got a lot of things coming your way. We're going to be taking some seasons in review. So for each league, we got Prospect season in review, the Challenger League season in review, and the Rival League season in review. So we're going to try to hit on as many of the points as we can for the seasons. And we'll also have a couple of cool awards, such as the underdog of the season. We've got commentators of the season. Let's see what else we have. GM of the season, goal of the season, save of the season. And we also have game of the season. And then we've got all of our MVPs. So finals MVPs and regular season MVPs, plus interviews going on all night. So it should be a pretty fun time, and I'm happy to get things going here. First thing that we are going to talk about, we are going to head to the Prospect League for the Prospect season in review. So if you guys take a peek at this here, we should be looking at the standings here. But so the standings for the Prospect League, they're very interesting. I'll bring it to Eminem. Eminem, what do you notice? Or what do you know about the standings for the Prospect League, and what kind of stood out to you looking at those standings? I think we lost. I think we lost Eminem. But Linty, are you here and are you able to look at the standings?
Looking at the Prospect League standings, there were some teams up at the top, and looking at Rooks, they had a great season, 9-3. Wervins 7-5. Vikings 9-3, but then you have Origin down there. They're 5-7, and that was actually the team that pulled through towards the end.
Yeah, Origin somehow got their way into the playoffs. They had a crazy run there. Obviously, you guys know one of the major things from the Prospect League this season was the whole smurfing issue. Obviously, we know Ikios from Vipers. He was a two-time player of the week, and Needles from Rooks, who ended up being Hypernova, was an all-star as well. Both of those guys were bypassing, got banned, and they were key members for the Vipers and the Rooks, and it was interesting to see what happened with that whole thing, and it was kind of a big change that they had to deal with halfway through the season. But yeah, also looking at some other roster moves that we had in here, we saw one of the other interesting ones was also from the Rooks. They lost one of their all-star players in Ego. He was a season one all-star as well. They lost him, so the Rooks kind of had a tough road going, and that was one of the other interesting roster moves from the Rooks. Linty, you see anything else of note?
For Prospect, I don't really know about too much of the noting. I didn't get to pay too much attention to that league. I just know there was a lot of good players that have a good chance of moving up this next coming season. I saw a lot of pickups for players that didn't get a chance to start, and towards the end of the season, they really showed that they had what it took to play within the league.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely had a lot of solid players. We're going to talk about a couple of those guys a little bit later with Finals MVPs and regular season MVPs. So definitely something to look out for. One of the other roster moves I want to talk about here is we talked a little bit about Origin talked a little bit about Origin before, and one of the key pickups that they picked up Heck towards the end of the season here. My team, obviously, I'm the GM for Origin, and the other teams in Org H, but yeah, we lost Kairos near the end of the season, and we picked up Heck with I believe it was only 2 weeks left in the season. We picked up Heck, and Heck really stepped up and made his way in the league, and he was one of the guys that really performed for Origin, and he definitely stepped up big time, filling in for us.
Yeah, Heck
And Heck,
was. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, you go ahead.
Chipmunk.
Oh, Heck was insane, dude. Cause Heck, like, in the playoffs, he went off completely. He scored like so many clutch goals. Like I think he had like 3 0-second goals in the playoffs. So definitely a really good pickup for Origin, and he even scored the uh, championship winning goal.
Yeah, that he did, and we'll be talking to Heck a little bit later on. I'll be getting some words from him, interviewing him a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, I wanna bring it up to looking at the playoffs and how the playoff standings shook out for the Prospect League, and it was a very interesting start just to get into the playoffs. Obviously, we talked about the Rooks and the Vipers and all the issues with that happened with that, and we had two playing games, the Rooks versus the Vipers, and then we had the Rooks versus Origin, and those were some crazy games for sure. Is Eminem back in here? Eminem, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I think that both teams, the Rooks and the Vipers, were looking very good. And the end of the season, they still were looking good. Just some fundamental games for them to win they couldn't take to get to playoffs, and it was really interesting to see how Origin was able to sneak their way into playoffs, and they ended up placing very well in the end.
Yeah, that they did. Origin obviously talked about winning it all, and yeah, that was a crazy end of the season, and I think it led perfectly into our playoff race where we had those best of three playing games where the Rooks they took down the Vipers 2-0, and then we had the Rooks play Origin, and that game went into the final game three, and we had a 4-minute overtime before a game-winning goal from. Reborn was able to send Origin to the playoffs. And, something that I always think about looking back on that and looking back at the season that Origin had and the run they made through the playoffs is that, if the Rooks score that goal in the playoffs or in that play-in game, then, Origin, they wouldn't have even been in the playoffs and they wouldn't have been able to make this spectacular run as the 4 seed. And, that was really, a crazy moment and a turning point for Origin for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Origin, going into next season, this season was a great season for them, and next season I want to see if they can keep it up. And I know the best players on every team in the Prospect League, they're definitely going to be moving up into the Challenger League, even the Rival League, possibly. Some great talent from Origin, especially.
Yeah, for sure. And also looking at a couple of other things through the playoffs here. So obviously we talked about Origin; they took it all, and I think we really got to talk about how they did that. And they came into the playoffs as the 4 seed, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a little bit. But yeah, Origin made a great run as the 4 seed. They took down the number one Vikings, then they took down the Wyverns in the winners finals, and then they took down the Wyverns again in the grand finals. And Lindsay, what do you have to say? What do you have to say about those teams that they had to go through. I know you say you don't follow the prospect league as much, but I think you really do have to be impressed with the run that Origin made to come out as a 4 seed to not even drop to the lower bracket and just win it all straight through the top.
I I definitely agree that Origin, they played super well. I know that they didn't start off their season too hot, but they finished their season like they needed to. They got the lucky break, and then they had to do the play-ins. They did perfectly. They played it super well. They won into the 4th seed, the second wild card, and then they went and they showed what they had. They had what it took. They went through the upper bracket all the way to the finals, and they didn't even have to take a bracket reset to win the grand finals. Super impressive and well played.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it was a very, very crazy season all the way around. We talked about all the changes and playoffs. It turned out crazy. We're gonna be moving on here in just a second to our next point on the list here. So moving forward, we are going to look at our first award of the season. Actually, now that we've covered the Prospect League season review, we're going to head to our first award of the season, and we are going to be talking about the underdog of the season. And there are a couple of interesting nominees. This is through all three of the leagues. All these awards were discussed within the management team, and with a couple of these media members here on who should be the underdog of the season, who should be the GM of the season, the goal of the season, all that sort of stuff. So we debated those and try to figure all that stuff out in this hectic time in between seasons. So with that being said, we have decided that the underdog of the season, we talked about them already. That is going to be Origin, and they were going to win our first award of the night as underdogs of the season. And I think we're gonna roll a clip right here to talk about or to show you guys why Origin was the underdog of the season. All right, so there you go. You guys can see that first montage from Origin there, and they obviously really performed well there. We talked a little bit about them, but I'll bring it to you, Eminem. What do you have to note from Origin from their season?
I mean, Origin, as we all know, started off slower and ended the season on the highest note possible. And in my opinion, Origin was definitely deserved this award, and they really showed a lot more mechanical skill than most teams in the prospect league. I feel like what distinguished them from most teams was their mechanical skill and their speed to get to the ball and finish on the back of the net.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about a couple of the players from Origin. Their roster was made up of Lancer, Heck, and Reborn, and that was the team that really took them through the playoff run, and they made a great run, and yeah, they made it all the way through and up into past that game three that we talked about for the playing game versus the Rooks, nearly 4 minute overtime to even get to the second wild card spot. And they made a run as the 4 seed. So a crazy performance from them, and we definitely have to give them credit. And we are going to be having an interview right now with the captain of Origin. We've got Lancer here. Lancer, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. Excited to talk to you and get a little insight into your season. So, yeah, as we talked about, you guys ended the season as a 5-7 team. You're 4 games back of the Vikings, who ended up being the number 1 seed. And you lost the last game of the regular season, but you made a great run through the playoffs. But what do you think? What do you think was the biggest struggle that you guys had throughout the regular season?
Well, yeah, it's no secret that we definitely struggled, especially toward the start of the season. But I mean, you can see it in most of our stream games. Even after we picked up Heck, our first couple games, we were playing really defensive. We were in our half basically 90% of the game, and we'd be lucky if we got one or two shots. But once we got more confident, once Heck came in, and we knew we could start to push forward more because we trusted him, we definitely got more attacking options, and that led to us scoring more goals.
Uh, did you feel like people doubted you coming into the playoffs?
I think maybe in the first series they did because Vikings did beat us in our last game of the season, even after we picked up Heck. So people thought, oh, maybe they got lucky beating Rooks, who are also a really good team that definitely could have been in the playoffs and made a run. But I think after our first series against the Vikings, people started to notice us a little more. But still, I think because we hadn't been together that long, people might have been doubting us a little bit.
Well, yeah, and following that up, how did it feel to prove everyone wrong about winning the championship and only dropping 3 games in your playoff run?
It was really good. I mean, it was kind of getting tiring, especially through the regular season. You know, most teams going into games probably thinking it was just a free win against us, but to prove them all wrong and to win it all, it's probably better than any feeling playing Rocket League.
Yeah, what do you think changed when Heck joined your team?
It's not to discredit because the other players that were on our team, both Muffin Dealer and Kairos, who played with us through the regular season, are both really good players. But I think once Heck joined our team, his quick play style and basically his mechanical consistency gave us confidence. Both Reborn and I knew we could go forward and take more risks on the attack. Basically, it just led for more attacking for us.
What were your thoughts coming into the second half of the season after you began the season 3-6 and then realizing you still had a chance at the playoffs?
I'm definitely not one to just, give up right away. So even after every game we lost, I was always doing the math to see how many games we needed to win and what other teams needed to lose for us to make the playoffs. It was definitely hard to stay confident, but I knew that Reborn and I, and Kairos at the time, and then when we picked up Heck, we knew we could definitely make a playoff run.
What did you and your team have to do to come together?
Basically, every single one of us just kept grinding along. We had to fix our comms, which was a big one. Throughout most of the start of the season, we were a pretty quiet team. That led to a lot of double commits and things like that. But once we fixed our comms mostly, again, we knew what each other were doing, and that just led to us playing a lot better.
Yeah, so I know you just talked about and you referenced, how you had to change your comms throughout the season, and we talked about, the pickup when Heck joined the team and, being doubted going into the playoffs. So did you guys have like a certain mindset going into the playoffs or a certain type of plan that you guys came up with?
Yeah, it was basically we need to start attacking. We can't keep defending as much as we were because, especially in the series against Brooks in the play-in, we had to make a lot of saves. And I mean, credit to Reborn and Heck, they both played really well and made I think double-digit saves through the series. So we knew, we might not be able to keep up that defensive consistency and that luck with the other teams not scoring. So we knew when we played Vikings in that first series, we needed to really push harder so that we're not stuck in our defensive end.
Yeah, for sure. So one last question before we let you go. Do you have any last words about your season or anybody you want to shout out watching the stream maybe?
Oh, I will definitely shout out Heck and Reborn. Uh, Best teammates I could have had through the season. Also, I'm not sure if Kairos and Muffin Dealer are in the stream, but they both helped us win those early season games that basically gave us a chance when Heck came in. Shout out to the guys on the Vikings. Those guys were absolutely cracked. Um, Also the guys on the Wyverns. They were also another team that could have easily won the league. And Velocity as well. They had a pretty solid season. They beat us both times we played them, so got to give them credit.
All right. Well, thank you, Lancer, and congratulations again on underdog of the season, and congratulations on becoming the season 1 champions for the Prospect League.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so that was Lancer there from Origin. Obviously, they have won the underdog of the season for all of Nemesis. So congratulations to Origin, and again, thanks for Lancer. Thanks to Lancer for joining us and giving us some insight into their season. It's kind of interesting. Kind of interesting to hear about that. But moving forward, we're going to head to our next award of the night. This is an interesting one. It was one that was suggested by you guys, the viewers in the Discord channel. You guys wanted to hear it, so we've got it for you. And this award is Commentators of the Season. So, Commentators of the Season, we decided on 2 different ways to go about this. So we decided one commentator of the season would be play-by-play commentator of the season, and the other would be the color commentator of the season. So we had a good amount of casters able to help us out throughout the season. So I do want to give a shout out to everyone who's helped us out, everyone who's still helping us out, all the guys on the panel tonight helping us out, and I appreciate everyone that's supported us so far and helped us with our media. It's grown a lot, obviously. And again, thank you guys to the viewers for supporting the streams as we've gone on through the season. But so yeah, our first award is going to go for our color commentator of the season, and we've actually got the color commentator of the season right in this call right here. Our color commentator of the season is Linty and Linty. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rocker Man. It has been an honor to participate with his media team and the Nemesis staff. And honestly, this was my first time to cast. This definitely exceeded my expectations. I was coming in here for a learning experience. I'm glad that I was able to grow, and many thanks to all the friends and the fellow media members who were able to support me and help me grow and become as good as I am today.
All right. Well, yeah, congratulations to Linty there. And yeah, I guess we'll move on to our next award. Before we do that, got to give a quick shout outs to Orcon for the sub. Also, Magma, thank you for the bits. Much appreciated. But our next award is play-by-play commentator of the season. And yeah, this play-by-play commentator of the season it's actually me, Rocker Man. I am the play-by-play commentator of the season. So I guess I get to give a speech now. Is that how this works, guys? Get to give a speech?
Absolutely.
All right, I get to give a speech here. Well, maybe a little bit biased here. Rockerman bias always wins. Never forget that, guys. Rockerman bias. If you want anything done, you need Rockerman bias. So just keep that in mind going forward. But in all seriousness, I appreciate the award here, and it's been a fun season. There were some crazy games, and next season I'm hoping for some crazier calls. I know we had a couple of long overtimes, some 7-8 minute overtimes that happened during the regular season. Also some crazy playoff winners. I know we talked about a couple of them from Heck. We also saw, I know Els hit a series winner in one of those games, but those are some really fun games to call. And I'm hoping that as we go into season 2, we'll get a lot more of those crazy games and a lot more of those close games. So we'll have to look forward to next season and see how everything goes. But moving forward, we're going to our next topic of the night. We're heading to our season in review for the Challenger League, and we've got a lot to talk about for the Challenger League. Interesting turnout for this one. We're first going to talk a little bit about the standings, and I'll bring it to you, Eminem here. Eminem, what do you see from the standings in the Challenger League? I know you were a player that participated in the Challenger League on Vortex. So what did you see from the standings, and maybe your games that you played?
Well, yeah, early on in the season, even before the season even started, within scrimmages alone, the Vortex thought that Drakes would definitely be a team to look out for, and they ended up making it to the finals, but couldn't take it all. You saw the Bishops went 9-3. Spectre also went 9-3. Samurai ended up winning it all as an 8-4 team. and they were the four powerhouse teams coming in from the Challenger League, and all four of those teams definitely deserved a chance in the playoffs.
Yeah, they definitely was an interesting split. Yeah, the four teams in the Challenger League, Bishops, Drakes, Spectre, Samurai, all of them were at least 4 games above those bottom four teams. So it was a pretty big split there in the Challenger League. So that was definitely interesting to note for sure. And a couple of other things that we saw a lot of roster moves actually come out from the Challenger League, and there were a couple of big ones that happened. Linty, what do you know about the roster moves from the Challenger League?
Well, there were some decent name players that ended up moving between teams. One of them was happened to be Ventus from the Drakes. I know he's a super solid player. I know things may not have worked out for Drakes, but he moved over to the Samurai, and they ended up taking it. But Drakes didn't necessarily lose an upper tier player. They picked up Skies, and he performed um, to expectation and above.
Yeah, definitely some good pickups. Guys and Benji going to the Drakes 2 days before the trade/drop deadline. So obviously you talked about it. Skies is a great pickup for the Drakes, and I think this move from Ventus going from the Drakes to the Samurai, it was one of the more interesting moves in the Challenger League. I think it really spiced everything up because it really seemed like the Samurai then were going to become a new powerhouse. They had Siki, they had Ventus now, and they had Hypernova, who formerly was on the team. But it seemed like that was an interesting decision in that regard. And Ventus, it looks like it all worked out for Ventus. As he ended up winning the season with the Samurai, and it seemed like that worked out. But that definitely sparked some of the rivalries in the Challenger League, and I think one of those rivalries, maybe not a crazy rivalry, but a reasonable rivalry, was the Samurai versus the Drakes. And obviously that Ventus move kind of had the Drakes, looking for a little bit of revenge, and they definitely found a little bit of it. Starting off the first game after that, after Ventus left the team and moved to the Samurai, the Drakes won that game 3-0, and they kind of got a little bit of their sweet revenge. Pulling off the sweep against a guy that left their team. Maybe a little bit of animosity between the Drakes and the Samurai, but they were able to get that game back, get that revenge, and they pulled that off. But the Samurai, they came back and they won both the games in playoffs, including in the grand finals against the Drakes. So a great move for them there. And yeah, one other, Eminem, I can bring it to you one more time. Obviously, you know a lot about the Challenger League, and there's one big rivalry we haven't talked about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the Drakes versus the Bishops, definitely the biggest rivalry in the Challenger League. They played against each other 4 times. Drakes won 3 of the 4 matches against the Bishops. They were both really competitive teams, both really talented teams. They were both in the Western Conference, and Drakes were able to pull off against the Bishops in the playoffs, getting to the grand finals. But both of those teams, I'm looking forward to seeing them play even more next season. The great rivalry that they have.
Yeah, for sure. It was a crazy rivalry for sure. It brought some of the best Rocket League we saw probably in the entire Nemesis. They had some really crazy games. One of the games I know about was the Western Conference Championship. What ended up being an impromptu Western Conference Championship with the final game of the regular season on Saturday Night Rocket League. These two teams were going at it head to head. The winner of that game would have been the number one seed going into the playoffs, and it just turned out that the Bishops pulled off the reverse sweep in that game. They were down 2-0 to the Drakes, and the Bishops came roaring back, and they came all the way back, and they were able to win that one out there. And they pulled off a they pulled off a great victory, able to get that number one seed. The Drakes actually dropped to the 4 seed, and that rivalry. Of course, they had a matchup in the playoffs, and looking at a little bit of that, I'm gonna bring Chipmunk into this one. Chipmunk, what do you have to say, about the Drakes and Bishops? A couple matchups in the playoffs, and maybe about the playoff race as a whole.
Yeah, I know the Drakes actually had an upper hand in that, beating the Bishops twice or three times. They actually went 3-1 in the Bishops, but it ended up being 1-1 in the regular season. But Drakes ended up beating the Bishops, twice in the playoffs, which was a big thing for the Drakes, as the playoffs are more important than the regular season. But the Drakes, pulled through when it mattered, and yeah, the Drakes ended up kind of winning the rivalry versus the Bishops.
Yeah, for sure. The Drakes just able to squeak that out, and losers finals was a crazy game in that one, and they took down the Bishops in both of those game sevens. But we also had a couple of other crazy games that we we had throughout the Challenger League playoffs, and it's always interesting to me to look at the seeding on how these teams perform during the playoffs, and you can see the Drakes and the Samurai, the 4 and the 3 seed Eminem, they made it to the grand finals, and it just goes to show how balanced the teams were in the regular season, and how anyone can win when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Any team, it seems like, had it in the Challenger League. Any of those top four teams seemed like they had what it took, and they all did. And it just came down to who could just stick through all the way, and that ended up being the Samurai.
Yeah, Samurai pulling it out. Obviously, season champions for the Challenger League, and a great performance from them. They obviously they went through the winners bracket as well, a lot like Origin did as the 4 seed. The Samurai came to the playoffs as the 3 seed. The first matchup against Spectre took a 4-1 victory. Then they went against the Drakes, who we talked about earlier. They took the Drakes down 4-2 in winners finals and advanced to grand finals, where the Drakes came back out of the lower bracket, and the Samurai, they won it again, and it was definitely an excellent performance from them. And you got to give huge props to the Samurai for pulling that out. Especially something that I want to bring us back on is that the Samurai, they had Hypernova, and we talked about Hypernova and the Needles situation, to where Hypernova ended up getting banned from the league for smurfing. But that had to be a tough situation. Anytime you lose a star player like that. And uh, Lindsay, what do you have to say about when teams like that, or anyone like that, kind of like loses a key player to your roster, and like how you can adapt?
I do know key players are a big importance, but also chemistry is. Ventus, solid player. It was hard to lose someone like him, but they picked up somebody in Skies who took them all the way to the finals. It they had good chemistry. It just so happened that Samurai was a better team overall.
Yeah, so Samurai again taking the championship down, and they are obviously the team that we love to watch throughout the Challenger League. So congratulations again to them, and that is your Challenger League season in review right there. So next up, we are going to be moving on to our GM of the season. So obviously, there's a couple of contenders for GM of the season. Obviously, Hypernova would have been a great contender for GM of the season if he didn't get banned. Obviously, myself, I'm in the mix as well. With Origin winning the championship. But there was someone that definitely stood out for us, and yeah, I think we're gonna roll the clip for your GM of the season. All right, so you guys can see Naturalis, your GM of the season. A great performance from him. He obviously is going to take that award home. And you really have to give him credit for the work that he did with his teams. He had three teams that finished second in the all of their leagues. You had the Dragons, 10-2 in the regular season, the best team in all of Nemesis, coming in, winning 10 out of the 12 games. They started 7-0 in the regular season. Naturalis was actually on the Dragons as well. He was mostly a sub, focusing on his GMing and being there if the Dragons ever needed him. But Dragons had a great performance, one of the best teams in the regular season, and obviously they finished just short of the championship, as well as the Drakes and the Wyverns, who both made some really great runs through the lower bracket. Tried to get up there, but just unable to make it all the way to the championship. So they were just a little bit short there, in winning the championships. Uh, but you have to give credit here to Naturalis. He performed well, and we've got Naturalis here in the channel. So Naturalis, I want to say congratulations on winning GM of the season.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. My players made it easy, and it could have went to anyone. Cajun Miller for one, Hypernova F in the chat. But yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah, so I want to ask you. Obviously, you said a lot of credit to your teams, and they performed really well. So, what do you think? What do you think was the biggest key to success for your teams? And what did you kind of do to make sure that they had what they needed to perform and to win games?
Well, I kind of let the teams operate on their own. I think that one thing they had was chemistry, and each team was each captain, shout out to Edwin, shout out to, every other captain. And the main thing is, especially the Wyverns. The Wyverns, they really hit it off. They worked really well together. Control, who never played in a league before, he did fantastic as captain. And it's just great.
Yeah, for sure. And they obviously performed really well. And I know you were on the Dragons for this season. So what was kind of your role? Being the GM, but also kind of being the sub. I know you talked about all the chemistry that your teams had, but what was it kind of like being the sub, but also being the GM, trying to balance that out a little bit on the Dragons.
Well, I think I have the best winning percentage in the league. I'm 1-0. It's pretty easy being Rhino Neal 1650 on the sheets. He's an 1800 player, easy. L's 1746. I got him third overall. That was a steal. 1900 solid player. And it allowed me to just sit back, GM, and take things over from there. And they went ahead, and sadly they couldn't, go all the way, but unfortunate.
All right, so I know that all three of your teams obviously did really well, but out of your teams, what team of yours did you expect to do well, and which one of your teams surprised you?
Well, I'm going to start with the big underdogs, the Wyverns. I came in, wrestling roots I played with before, and I knew he was a solid player. But I didn't really know Control too well. I knew that he was a good guy, so I made him my captain. Blazing Biscuit really surprised me. He went out there, and every single week he helped the team get better. He might have not been the captain, but he definitely led that team. He did fantastic.
What was your game plan at the start of the season? Talking about the draft, like when you went into the draft, what were you looking for in players and kind of setting up your teams?
The main thing I was looking for is potential. I both talked to each player before the draft, and I also looked at their MMR tracker, seeing how they did in the past few seasons, as well as how quickly they've improved, so that over the course of the season they would hopefully get better and work as a team. And it's really worked out. Magma has went from 1300 to 1500 now in Challenger League. He's played fantastic. I knew Els and Ryan O'Neal were going to be fine. That was nothing. Um, as for the Wyverns, Blazin C3 now, wrestling roots. He's a consistent player. C2 all around. Chillin as the sub, he did fantastic as well, and I was just shocked and surprised, and I'm glad it worked out.
You know, after drafting the players for the teams, how did you like what went into the process of picking the captain?
Actually, that's a funny story. When I was messaging each player, Control seemed like a very mature guy. He used perfect grammar. He was like so nice about it, and I was like, you know what? You may only be 900 MMR. You might be new to this, but I think you'd be a great captain, and he really stepped up.
What did you do different from other GMs that enhanced your team's performance?
I don't think I really did anything different. I think every GM did fantastic. But I think just some GMs might pick their friends, but I picked people that I thought would have the most potential to improve. And I might have picked a few friends, but besides that, I focused on who would fit well together, and it worked out.
Yeah, so something I wanna ask you here is, obviously it's a tough situation when all of your teams make the finals, but couldn't come up with the victory. I know that was definitely a little bit tough, but what do you have to say about all of your team's performance, to make it to that point, and to make that lower bracket run and survive.
It is tough. I said in the general chat, I was like, man, I'm glad every team made it. And then Magma went out there and said, but it sucks if all of them lose. And I was like, that ain't gonna happen. And then it happened. It's unfortunate, but just every single team making the finals, that is insane. That just shows the hard work that every team put into it. And in a series where it's 7 games, it's a long series, and stuff happens. I'm glad that each game was close. I believe, did every game go to game 7? I don't believe I remember.
I am not
I
sure. I
think,
know. I don't think the Wyverns did. It was 6, but I think
gotcha,
a couple of the other ones did.
gotcha. Yeah, they put up a good fight, and that's all that matters.
All right, so I want to give you a chance. Is there anybody you want to shout out? Anything you want to say to your teams or anyone that might be watching tonight?
I just want to shout out to Edwin, Magma, and Control. I'm hoping to keep them around next season. We'll see about the cap space, but they're all great people. They're soldiers, and they're great guys.
All right. Well, thank you and congratulations again on the GM of the season.
Thank you very much, Rockerman.
All right, so that was Naturalis, your GM of the season. Big congratulations to him on taking that one home. Definitely deserved that one. He pulled it off for sure. And yeah, you got to give him some props there on that one. So we're gonna be moving on to another couple of awards here. First one that we've got for you guys, we got two of them coming up real quick here. The first one is going to be the goal of the season. We got a couple of really solid nominees, so we're gonna throw those nominees up. Talk about it just a little bit, just briefly about each of those nominees, and then we are going to reveal the winner for goal of the season. So here are your nominees for goal of season 1. Magma trying to get one more. He pops it up high, looking for the shot. The redirect. Skies tries to put it in. It goes wide, and that one still dangerous. Going across, and Magma puts it in, the game winner, and the Drakes are moving on. He just keeps his team alive and kicking. He's now Hack taking the shot. Is it going to go in? Yes, it is. Hack puts it home, and Origin are your season 1 champions. Time is ticking. Kings are going to need a counterattack opportunity. Astrodistic put it down in the midfield. Shot opportunity. It's going to go in. Don't feel special with the goal, but a great passing play. All right, so there are your nominees for goal of the season. A couple of great ones. Got Magma Series winner, Heck Championship winner, and then the King's Passing Play are your three nominees. I want to talk a little bit about the first one, the Magma Series winner. That was a crazy game there. I know foam in the chat, one of our subscribers. He doesn't want to talk about that. That one was a tough one to watch for him. But that series winner, we had a couple of series winners and some pretty solid performances there. But that Magma series winner to me, a really solid goal. Game 7, 0 second goal to send the Drakes to the championship, and that was definitely a great goal for that one. And Eminem, can you tell us about that Heck championship winner?
Well, the Heck Championship winner was just an absolute masterpiece. The grand final to win the whole thing for the Prospect League. Heck just throwing it in the last second to win the whole league, and it seems like Heck was always there at the last second to clutch up for Origin. He was just always there at the final second, getting a 0 second goal, getting a goal with like 2 seconds left, or getting a goal in overtime. He was always there, and I think that just kind of solidified his title of the King of Clutch, pretty much, for the Prospect League.
Yeah, definitely. Heck always came in clutch for sure. And last goal that we saw in there, definitely one of the best mechanical goals on there. The King's Passing Play. Linty, what can you kind of tell us about that one?
Just that there's great awareness when you come up to the rival league. A lot of these players are looking for each other. You saw that 3-man passing play. You had Seath passing it up to Astro. Astro jumping off the sidewall, banging it to the floor, who had Don't Feel Special waiting for it. He knew where he needed to place on that back post, and he made a great shot away from the defense.
Yeah, so a lot of great goals, a lot of great nominees there for this season. But our goal of the season is going to go to Magma Series winner. Let's roll that clip one more time for you guys. All right, so yeah, there you go. That's the Magma Series winner there to send the Drakes to the grand finals, and just a great goal, like we talked about. Magma able to pull that one off and put it home. So congratulations to Magma on taking the goal of the season. So congratulations to him, and we will move on to our next nomination here. We're going to be moving to the save of the season. There are a couple of interesting ones. This one was a little bit tougher to determine, a little tougher to find. Obviously people remember the goals that show up throughout the season, but not a lot of people remember the saves. And we had a couple of great ones. So we've got a couple of nominees, and we are going to roll those for you. So take a peek. I turn things around, but L's turning it around himself, and he's going to put that one towards the net. P Fox, what a save! Careful, but they're hoping to break through.
Shut off the back wall, Bravos there. Can he find the back post? It's on the goal line. Oh!
What a save! Oh my goodness. That Vortex, they are holding on for dear life. That ball is halfway in the net. Bishops blocked across. Khan has to retreat, but it's a pass right to Skies towards the net. Might go in. Sent it home. All right, so those are your nominees for save of the season. You saw P Fox's save in grand finals. You saw Foam save in the series and that reverse sweep in the Western Conference Championship game. And you saw Eminem and Ori combining for those saves against Motion in week 1. And I'm going to talk about the first one that we saw there, the P Fox save. A great performance there. He was one of the guys that really stepped up for the Knights in the grand finals against the Dragons for the rival league. And, I remember watching that game. I know Linty was involved in that one as well, but I remember watching that game, and I had no idea how P Fox saved that ball. He came out of nowhere to make that save. And I think it just goes to show P Fox was one of those guys that, stepped up for his team, and, he really performed in that one, and he was definitely a really solid save there. And it was absolutely crazy to watch that one. for sure. But Lindsay, what can you tell us about that second save that we saw with Foam?
It's just super clutch. When you're in a situation like that where the number one seed for the Challenger League is on the line, just you're in that situation where like it's make or break. It's game set. It's the series save as well. So saving that goal, place him in the number one seed to move forward a lot easier in the playoffs. Super clutch, and it was so great to watch.
Yeah, definitely. That's the reverse sweep we talked about in the Western Conference Championship game. Great performance from the Bishops and a great save by Foam for sure. Definitely one of the season in that one. And last one, we've actually got one of the participants in a nominee here. We got Eminem and Ori combined for that save. Eminem, walk us through that one and kind of what was going through your guys' mind in that one.
Well, that was just crazy. I still remember the moment it was our first game, or it was the first week. We were playing Motion, and I remember we thought it was going. I just kind of launched myself toward the ball and somehow was able to keep it out of the goal, and then Ori just clearing it. It was so funny. Everyone was just so surprised. I'm pretty sure that Chipmunk had already given up at that point, thinking it was going in. It was just a great moment to witness, and yeah, it was just overall. I think it was a great save and a great team effort.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a very solid nomination. But yeah, so our nominee and our winner for save of the season is going to go to P Fox and the save from grand finals. So we're gonna roll that for you guys and talk about that one a little bit. Turn things around, but Els turn it around himself, and he's gonna P Fox. That one literally comes out of nowhere, like we talked about. I know Linty was there, and Linty, maybe you could talk a little bit about this one and how we saw. P Fox basically he just kind of popped out of nowhere to push that one out of the net, and in a moment like that in grand finals, that was just a crazy moment.
It was definitely insane. Like P Fox, he was coming from the corner after getting that boost. He had an offensive player coming down on the ball. He had very limited room to touch it, and he dove into the net around the post while the ball's halfway into the goal, and he pops it back up above. It was just crazy to watch live, and it was super impressive to see.
Yeah, for sure. So congratulations to P Fox. I see him in the chat out here. P Fox, congratulations on save of the season, keeping his team definitely in that series and grand finals. Crucial save, and definitely a huge performance from him in the grand finals for the Knights and led him to the championship. So congratulations to him. And we are going to move on to the next part. We are going to be moving on to our rival league season interview. Obviously, the rival league, our top league in Nemesis, one of probably had some of the craziest moments in the rival league. A lot of intense action, a lot of great teams. And Linty, I know you're definitely our resident expert in the rival league, considering you're one of the players in the rival league. So, what can you tell us about how the rival league turned out this season?
The rival league was super competitive. There was a good amount of balance, and a lot of the games they were all the way to game 5 or maybe the game 4, but they were all close games. So you had the Dragons at the top. They went 10-2 on the season. They were super dominant, but a lot of those games could have went the other way, but they are very clutch. They finish very well. You have other situations where like the Knights, they got second place seeding within the playoffs where they beat out my team, a rival. We had the game on them, and if we won, we would got second seed, but they are a very good team as well. They beat us, knocked us to the number 3 seed, and then they knocked us to the lowest bracket following playoff start. And then you have the Kings. Kings, Bubbly Reaper, Seath, um, Astronistic, all three very solid players. They work very well around each other. Very offensive, hard to stop when they get going. They got the number 4 seed when they had the tiebreakers, but they could have been up there at the top as well.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that you talked about is how close those rival league teams really were. You had the Kings coming into the playoffs. That whole final week of the season in the rival league was absolutely crazy, and how how those guys, managed to squeak their way in. There was a three-way tie in the rival league. There's a potential for a four-way tie coming into the last day of the season on Saturday. There was a potential that there could have been a four-way tie for that final wild card spot. And I know, as kind of the guy that was focusing on these standings and who's going to make the playoffs and who's not going to make the playoffs, I was nervous. I was a little bit nervous because, if we had a four-way tie, all those scenarios, I did a lot of number crunching just for the three-way tie. And if that would have been a four-way tie, I don't know what I would have done at that point. That would have been absolutely insane. But obviously, it didn't quite work out that way. There was almost a three-way tie for the final spot. Knights and Arrival, they tied at 7-5. And the Kings, they held the wild card or the tiebreaker for the wild card spot over Parallax, who were also 6-6. So that was definitely a crazy season or a crazy finish there, and it was definitely crazy ending to get into the playoffs for all of those teams. So yeah, looking elsewhere, we also have roster moves for the rival league, and for the rival league, it seemed to me like there was definitely a lot of roster moves. I know Chipmunk, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. I know you were in charge of Venganza. I know there was a lot of stuff that happened with your team, but what can you say about how your team kind of went in the rival league, and maybe about how other teams manage their roster moves as well.
Well, I mean, don't really want to talk about it too much. The purging of Venganza. That's what I like to call it. Multiple players removed at the same time, but mainly due to inactivity. But there were some players who just didn't fit well with the team. But most roster moves were pretty solid. I think no roster moves really worked out, or no roster moves didn't work out. I think they all worked out pretty much for everyone.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of moves that went around in the league, and I think we saw some moves that really propelled some teams into the playoffs. I know Arrival, and Linty. I know Linty. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the roster moves that we made at the end of the season to pick up a couple of players and attempt to make that playoff push, and how that kind of affected Arrival.
I know that we had our little team makeup. We were a pretty good team. There was a couple of finishes that were a bit sketchy. It had nothing to do with the skill level of the players. It had to do more of just how we were finishing games. But we dropped certain players. We picked up somebody else that fit really well, and that allowed us to push forward and almost take the number 2 seed going into playoffs.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of roster moves, and Arrival, Venganza, all the teams really just made some great moves there to kind of give themselves a chance there. So a couple other things, we've got a bunch of rivalries in the rival league. There were some good ones, and I think a lot of people know the one that I'm going to talk about. Well, I'm going to send to Linty to talk about, and that is the Dragons versus the Kings. There was definitely some heated moments there. Linty, what can you tell us about Dragons versus Kings?
They're both very competitive teams. Dragons, they were kind of coasting in the playoffs, but the Kings, they knew that they had to win. So there was a little bit of heated arguments in the chats every now and again, but you could tell both teams, they were very competitive against each other. They knew the other team they needed to beat, and Dragons, they won both their games during the regular season, but then you see that huge upset game, first round of the playoffs. Kings beat Dragons, knocked them down to the lower bracket, followed by Knights knocking down the Kings, and then they had their fourth time matchup on the season. Dragons was able to pull that one out, but it was still really close. It was just great competitive scene to watch, and I hope to see it again next season.
Yeah, definitely. The Dragons and the Kings, it was crazy intense. And, that was another Org A versus Org B rivalry. Naturalis and Cajun kind of had a couple teams, a little bit of beef there. Obviously, I like to see a little bit of intense action there. Obviously, that always spices things up, a little bit, especially, when those games mean the most in the playoff setting. So, that was always just interesting for me to see how that worked out. And obviously they had some really good games back and forth, and it turned out to make for some definitely entertaining Rocket League for sure. So also, we definitely did have some interesting games. I'm gonna bring it to Linty again, who's our rivalry expert here. You actually participated in this game, one of the more interesting ones in the rival league. This one was against a team that we talked about in the Kings here, and there was a game five. 7 minute and 27-second overtime. What can you remember about that one between you and the Kings?
It was just super intense. It was, as we call it, it was super sweaty. We knew we needed to beat them. It was getting really close to playoff time. We needed to start winning games, and then we go to best of five, or we go to the game five against Kings, second time on the season. Game five went all the way to 7.5 minutes. Goals weren't being scored. Great defensive plays. It super intense. We were super lucky to pull it out because the Kings, they had a lot of good shots that we had some lucky saves on, and I hope that something like that happens again. It's a lot of fun to play in, and it's great to see when it's on stream.
Yeah, I remember also casting that game. That was the longest streamed overtime that we had in the regular season. Definitely a crazy moment, and that's one of the records that we have in Nemesis so far. 7 minutes, 27-second overtime in game five, with that one to Arrival taking down the Kings earlier on in the season. But yeah, crazy performance there, and yeah, we also, like we talked about earlier, all this stuff, all this regular season, interesting games, interesting, standings, positions. It all led up to the playoffs. And Eminem, what can you kind of tell us about how the playoffs worked out in the rivalry?
Well, early in the playoffs, Dragons lost their first round to the Kings, and that was really interesting as they are rivals, and Kings being the fourth seed, and then Dragons won their way from the lower bracket to the grand final. So that was really interesting there.
Yeah, that was something, that we definitely alluded to earlier between the rivalry between the Kings and the Dragons, and that had to be one of the biggest upsets of the season. Maybe before Origin took down Vikings in the playoffs, but that was a surprising first game for me, and it was something that no one really expected. I think we had a lot of bracket predictions that came in, but I don't think anyone picked the Kings to win that matchup, and that was just a crazy moment for the Kings, and to take down the Dragons. I think that really set them back going forward to lose that first round matchup, because I think it's something we haven't really talked about yet, but no team really came from the lower bracket, and teams were able to make it to the finals from the lower bracket, but everyone that won this season, was able to avoid the bracket reset, and you know, they just survived, and that winner's bracket was so crucial for everyone. And I think the Kings taking down the Dragons early kind of put a damper on such a great season that they had, and but you really have to give props to the Kings, who performed super well. And yeah, but besides the Kings, we also had a couple of other great teams. Linty, what can you tell us about some of those other teams?
So you have the Knights, great team. I know that towards the end of this middle end of the season, they were having connection issues, they were having teamwork issues. They weren't communicating too well in some of their games. They had some really close games that they could have taken, or series even. But when they got to playoffs, they turned on the burners. Knights, I know it was a close series against us, a rival in the first round. We went to game 7. We could have won it, but their defense is so hard to break. We couldn't score on them. They ended up scoring on us. We got knocked down a loser's bracket, but the Knights, they didn't stop. They went the rest of the way through the upper bracket and eventually took the championship. They're just a super solid team.
Yeah, definitely performance from the Knights, and they had a really solid performance there, and you really have to give them credit. We talked a lot about them earlier, and I think we're going to talk a little bit later to a couple of players. Well, actually, I think at least one player from the Knights. we'll talk to him later about their season and maybe get some insights about how the Knights perform. So that'll be coming a little bit later on in the show. We got a couple more things to go tonight here for you guys. We have what's up next is our last non MVP award for the night. We have the game of the season coming your way, and then after that, we're going to get to your MVPs, your finals MVPs for all three leagues, and then we'll have a season 2 preview heading into next season. So make sure you guys sticking around for that because those MVPs are going to be kind of crazy. So definitely stick around. But before that, I got to give a shout out to Blazing Biscuit again for another gifted sub. Shout out to Blazing Biscuit. Thank you again, man. Much appreciated. But we're going to talk about our game of the season here. Obviously, we talked a lot about some crucial games here, and I got to give a couple of honorable mentions before we run the clip about our game of the season. We had a couple of great games. We talked about them. Origin versus Rooks, that game 3 tiebreaker game, 3 minutes and 52 seconds of overtime with a game winner from Reborn able to take the victory and advance Origin to the playoffs, where they eventually pulled it all the way out as a 4 seed, running their way through. That was a crazy game. I don't think, just calling it a 352 overtime does it justice because that game was super intense with everything on the line. Definitely a great game and a super honorable mention there in that one. And then we talked about Arrival versus Kings, that game 5 overtime, 7 minutes and 27 seconds. Same story there, super intense all around. The saves were coming out from everyone. And there was just nothing anyone could do to score before Mugi finally put in the game-winning goal on that one. And that was definitely a crazy game for sure. But we have our game of the season. It was one we talked about earlier, and that one is going to be the Bishops versus the Drakes, Game 7 of the Losers Finals. Let's run that clip, so you guys can take a look at what exactly made that the game of the season. All right, so there you go with the Magma game winner there, able to advance the Drakes to the grand finals. A crazy game there. I think one of the crazier stats on that one was that there were 4 goals in the final 29 seconds of that matchup. Back and forth action. Game 7, the rivalry we talked about, everything on the line. The loser is going home. There was just so much on the line for that game. I remember casting that game with Chipmunk, and that was one of the crazier games that we saw in the regular season. And it was definitely deserving of the game of the season for sure in that one. And we are going to be joined by one of the players who was involved in that one. He actually had the last second goal. We're joined by Magma. Magma, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Rocker Man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Obviously, that was a crazy series. What can you kind of tell us about your rivalry and what made that goal and that game so special?
Oh boy. Well, the rivalry really went back all the way to our first time we played the Bishops. We played them pretty early on the season, midpoint, and we 3-1 them, but it was very close the entire way through. And from there, we kind of knew that Bishops were probably the biggest team to look out for. And then from there, we played them on Saturday Night Rocket League. We got reverse swept. And then there was the controversy in the first round of the playoffs against them. So that didn't do anything but make the rivalry even more intense. And then we went to Game 7 with them again in the losers finals, and we went down by 2-0, I remember, and it like we remember being down 2-0 last time, but like we honestly we were confident the entire way through, and we ended up clutching up towards the end, and I think we just were able to keep our like heads level headed, and we ended up just clutching up, and yeah.
Yeah, so I've got one more. I've got one more follow up question for me. Obviously you were the one that put in that last second goal. What was kind of going through your guys' minds, and what kind of went through your comms, in that moment, and what happened? What was going through your mind in that last second there?
Um, Honestly, there was a lot of adrenaline. I struggle to remember exactly what happened, but I remember Benji saying like it's going center and me seeing the ball floating across the net, and like I remember the intense like shaky feeling in my hands while going up for the ball, but the moment it dropped in the net, it was like it was such a magical moment in the Drake's comms. We were so hype.
I know you're talking about your rivalry against the Bishops, but what can you tell us? What players were you looking out when you played against the Bishops?
Um, it was definitely we were very afraid of both Foam and Khan, like because Khan's a very solid defensive player. We actually were looking at him when Ventus got traded away, but he ended up getting picked up by the Bishops before we could actually try him out. And we did try out Khan as well. Or did I say Khan? My bad. We tried out both Foam and Khan. And basically, so we knew how they played, but then Wolfie ended up being a major threat in the playoffs. So really, all three of them were equal threats.
I know that you already mentioned some of your game highlights, but what, like throughout that whole series, what did really stood out to you throughout all that play?
Um, I would probably say, um, wait, sorry, repeat that. Sorry.
Like for that series where you had it was the game of the season, like throughout that whole series, what was it like? What do you remember from that series that led up to that game of the season?
Definitely the first goal that was like around like minute and a half mark because we were down 2-0. We didn't really have much offense going, but we were able to like that. I felt like really turned the tides.
Here, I'll take this next one here. So what was it like? Obviously we talked about the rivalry. That's kind of the main thing that we talked about between you and the Bishops. What was it kind of like between you guys, before that series? Like what kind of led up to that series? And then, what was it kind of like between you guys after that series?
Um, well, before the series, it was a lot of banter back and forth. Like there there was definitely no one held back. Like we were constantly going back and forth because we both knew that the games could go any way possible, but and then especially after the controversial game, there was a lot more kind of salt behind the banter. But then afterwards, there was kind of a much higher mutual respect between the teams because like you can't help but respect the other team after going to game 7 like that.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a crazy game for sure. Is there anyone that you'd like to shout out tonight, or any one of your teammates maybe that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Honestly, probably Chosky, Benji, and Skies. They all phenomenal teammates throughout the entire season. I definitely don't think we would have been able to go as far as we did with anyone but them.
All right. Well, congratulations for you guys on taking that game of the season, and yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good
Uh,
one.
Thank you too. All right, that was Magma there, representing the Drakes who won the game of the season between the Bishops, and that was Game 7 of the losers finals, and that was Magma that we had there in that one. So Next up, we are going to head to our MVPs. So we got a lot of different MVPs. This might be one of the best parts of the show. So you guys are definitely gonna want to pay attention here. All of the stuff in the regular season led up to this. And we are going to head to our first award here. We have the finals MVP for the Prospect League. Obviously, you guys know Origin took down the Wyverns in 6 games. But there's one person that stood out as the finals MVP, and that is going to be Heck. He went off in that one 10 goals, 2 assists, 12 saves, 32 shots. He's pouring it on. He was averaging 546 score in the finals. Absolutely crazy performance from him in that one, and he definitely deserved it. And I think we have got some clips from your finals MVP for the Prospect League. Let's roll those. All right, so there you go. Some of the great goals from Heck. Obviously, we talked about his game winners and all the stuff that he has done for Origin with a great pickup there from him. And yeah, Heck was a great pickup for sure. And we have got the man himself in the call here. Heck, how are you doing? Congratulations on the award.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels pretty good. I got picked up mid-season, obviously, and just the fact that like there was this one game where I got over 1,000 points, and that's like the only reason I got like a 500 score average.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a crazy game. I know exactly what you're talking about with that one. What was it kind of like? Obviously you talked about, you know, getting picked up, towards the end of the season. When you finally got picked up, what was going through your mind, and how did you transition into your team with Origin?
Um, well, basically, I just kind of tried to adapt to Lancer and Reborn. Like, obviously, like when we won against Rooks in the play-ins, I was like, okay, we actually have a chance. So I should like start trying to, play better and do more scrims with them. Like I just played more with my teammates, and it just worked.
Yeah, I know that you came in late into the season, but when you finally came in, what was your mindset going into each game? How did you mesh with your team, and was everyone's um, what did y'all need to do to get everything together?
Well, basically, this is kind of like this Lancer. He kind of gave us a pre-game speech every time, and it worked because it put us in the right mindset. He just told us we know what we need to do, and let's just play Rocket League, and that's what happened.
Well, what kept you so focused to perform at the high level that you did during the finals?
Well, I just felt like I had to prove some people wrong. Like, I'm not gonna say any names, but like it just I felt like there was a lot of people doubting me because I like joined mid season, and Wyverns were obviously like a good team. They were together like the entire season, and like I basically joined like a couple days before playoffs. So I just felt like if I didn't win, then I would just be disappointed in myself.
Wow, that's definitely a solid mindset. I think that's probably a really good reason as to why you won the Finals MVP. So I know you talked about that 4 goal game. I know we kind of talked a little bit about your mindset, but what did you like? What do you kind of think going through those games, and especially in that 4 goal game where you were popping off, like when you're in that moment, do you kind of feel that you're popping off? Was like they're like this, kind of like ascension, you were kind of you're like, wow, I'm really just on my game right now.
I just kind of I get the feeling where it's kind of like an adrenaline rush. It's like when you're doing good and it just feels nice, like how good you're performing.
You know, after the finals, you know, like when you were in that game six in the 3 minute overtime, what were your comms like after you ended up scoring that goal in that 3 minute overtime?
We were just kind of giving like short, fast comms because we were really focused and it was just in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. So, one last thing. Do you have anyone that you'd like to shout out? Anyone you'd like to give thanks to that helped you along the way, or anyone else that might be watching?
Um, well, first off, I just wanna give a shout out to one person. Well, like at least the person who brought me at least into the league, which is Case or Chimkin. He brought me into the league, and well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And also, I want to shout out like my teammates, Lancer and Reborn. We were just a very solid team.
All right. Well, congratulations again, and way to bring that championship home for Origin. Definitely proud of you, and congrats, man.
Thank you.
All right, so that is Heck from Origin. He is your finals MVP for the Prospect League, able to help Origin win the season one championship there. So we are now going to head for our final award for the Prospect League. We have the MVP of the Prospect League. A great performance for this player. There were a couple of players who, definitely stood out here in the prospect league, but one obviously stood out above the rest and stood above all the other players, and that is going to be Blazing Biscuit. Um, he played 38 games in the regular season and really put his team on his back. He was averaging over 1 goal a game, had 39 goals. Absolutely insane. 20 assists, 53 saves, 118 shots. He really put the team on his back in this season. And let's take a look at some of his highlights. Able to make the save, another one for him. He's trying to hold on to this Origin defense. The Seabiscuit towards the net. What an angle from Seabiscuit. He puts it home. And the Wyverns now have their second goal of the game. All right, so there you go. You see some of those performances from Blazing Biscuit. Obviously, a really solid player for the Wyverns, able to take home the regular season MVP. So we are actually going to bring him in right now. We've got Blazing Biscuit. Blazing, congratulations on the MVP. No problem. So I've got a question to start things off here. So obviously, with this being the first season of Nemesis, obviously there were expectations for everybody. Everybody wanted to show up and perform in the first season of this league. So what were kind of your goals personally, and maybe some of your goals as a team to start off the season?
Well, coming into the season, I kind of forgot I even signed up, if you want to know the truth. Uh, I got a message from Nat, like, you've been drafted. And I was like, oh, yeah, that. So my goals were admittedly kind of low. I had previous experience with some leagues that didn't work so well. So I was like, oh, no, another league. But then I started playing. I met some really good players and started having really, like, a lot of fun. And that was where, like, me playing well kind of derived from.
I know you were talking about meeting some good players, but what was your motivation? Was it the players? Like you played at such a high level over such a long time. Can you give us some insight on that?
I just like I hate losing. I'm a very competitive person, so like being in such a like competitive scene made me like want to play well. It motivated me every day to play well. My teammates, they're always there like wanting to win. They had the same kind of like winner mentality. So like having them behind me telling me like we got to win. We're going to play well every game, every day, every practice. It really just kept me motivated throughout the whole season to play well.
Well, I know there's a lot of great games you had all season, and what do you have as your best memorable moments you thought about throughout the season? Anything you can remember above everything else?
I would have to say definitely the loser final bracket. Been really close friends with a bunch of the guys in the Vikings. We had a bunch of scrimmages and during the season outside of league play, and they were like a really good team. We like really always wanted to beat. So to go to game 7 and just have such an intense like playoff winner goes to the finals feeling, that was definitely like the best feeling game series.
So one thing I'm always curious about is how these teams, how your teams kind of like come together and what it's like, while you're actually playing these games. So do you have any sort of like insight for us? Like what was kind of going through your comps through most of these games? Were you guys like cool and collected? Were you quiet? Were you talkative? Like what was it kind of like in your comms?
Um, I'd say we're sporadic. That's probably the best word to describe our comms. We're all very energetic people, like when we comes to comms, so like words just kind of fly all over the place. We were always analyzing other teams, trying to figure out what to do to beat them. We would come into game one pretty passive, trying to figure out how they wanted to play and try to adjust our play to their play and like counter it. So that was like our comms are pretty sporadic for the rest of the game because we just spit out like, hey, this person's going, this person's not, that person's being passive. Like we'd be calling out more than just like what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got one more for you here. So obviously, you guys ended up pulling off the number one seed in your conference, and you were able to technically win the conference for the Western Conference, and you had that spot in the playoffs coming into the bracket as the number two seed. What was it like? Going through playoffs. I know you had a couple of tough games versus Origin, but what was it kind of like the whole playoffs experience for you?
It was definitely intense. From the very beginning, just starting off against Velocity, like we 4-0'd, which really helped boost our confidence. But even after that, we play Origin on that Wednesday, get a smack in the mouth, and had to recover from that. And there was just a lot of mental gains that we had to do to understand for most of us. I think Roots is the only one with any like league experience. This was my first league. You said previously it was Elites. So like never being in that atmosphere and kind of growing and figuring out how to get through it was definitely the hardest part of the playoffs for us. Or yeah.
All right. So yeah, for sure. Do you have anything you wanna say, anyone you want to shout out after winning this award?
I definitely want to shout out my teammates. Obviously, they were there with me the whole season. They supported me even when I sleep through our week 2 game against Origin, and they never let me live that down. Shout out to Nat for drafting me. Shout out to King Bob off of Vikings for always being willing to get together and like watch film kind of and like study teams. But yeah, shout out to this like almost the whole league. I kind of like love everybody here, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
All right, thanks, man. Well, congratulations again. First MVP for the Prospect League. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, so that's Blazing Biscuit, guys. MVP for the Prospect League. We're gonna run the honorable mentions. I may or may not have forgot to put the nominees up, so we're gonna take a look at our honorable mentions here for the Prospect League. But congratulations to Blazing Biscuit. Is denied away. King Bob now trying to get on the counter. It's gonna block that one towards the net. It might just go in off the post, and the follow comes in. King Bob puts it home, and the Vikings take the lead. Okay, so the Vikings have the lead, looking to take this series. We'll have to see if Chipmunk was right, but Yikes gonna put that one home. Another goal for them, and with 33 seconds remaining, up by 2, it looks like the Vikings are moving towards match point. Yeah, so those are your nominees for the MVP for the Prospect League. Bob Lavla and Yikes definitely had great performances throughout the regular season, so they definitely deserve an honorable mention in that one. So, um, But got to give a big congratulations to Blazing Biscuit, who pulled off the whole thing there, and he was able to take home the MVP. So big congratulations to him. And we are going to be moving to our next award, and this one is the Finals MVP for Challenger. So we are going to have our Finals MVP first, and then we'll be getting to the MVP for the Challenger League. So first off, our Finals MVP for the Challenger League, we definitely had a couple of nominees there. Obviously, we talked about the Samurai who took down the Drakes in the grand finals, and they were able to pull off the victory. And our finals MVP is going to go to Ventus, who had a great performance. Let's take a look at some of the clips that we had from him. All right, so that's your finals MVP in Ventus from the Samurai. And he definitely had a great performance. He pulled off 7 goals in the finals, 8 assists, 12 saves, 13 shots, and he averaged 513 score in the grand finals there. Huge congratulations to Ventus. And we're actually going to bring in the man himself right there, Ventus. Ventus, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Rocker Man?
I'm doing great. You're the Challenger League Finals MVP, and what do you have to say about that and how the whole finals went for you?
I honestly didn't think it was gonna be me. I thought it was gonna be Zap, low key, because he popped off, especially in playoffs. Like he was going off. And Sticky played really well too in that series. So I don't think that I should be the one to get Finals MVP at least. I think my team played better than me.
All right, fair enough. But something that I wanna ask you here is, obviously there's a lot of motivation to try to win the season, and obviously there's extra motivation on the line. What kind of really kept you focused during the grand finals on what you had to do, and not really getting sidetracked with the ups and downs that can come with the playoffs.
I just focused on taking it game by game. I needed to prove myself against Drake's because I left the team and I felt like if I lost to them, it would ruin the entire like reason behind me leaving. So I was really just focused on that and just like taking my time and playing my game, making sure my teammates are playing really well too, just being that overall solid player.
I know you mentioned playing against your old team, but what was it like facing your old teammates? I know there's some sort of connection there, and it can be really competitive.
It was crazy. They all played really well. It was just great that we could put on a great series for them and overall take them out. I was very iffy about going to the game because I knew that it would be a very difficult series to play in, but we ended up taking the game. Oof.
Well, I know early in the season you did mention or that you moved from the Drakes, but do you think you still would have been able to win if you stayed on the Drakes?
That's a great question. I don't know. It would have been cool to see what would have happened, but I think that the Drakes definitely got better when I left because they made some very huge drops and pickups on new players like Skies and Benji. They're both really good players. I think overall it worked out better for both teams because Samurai improved and Bishops improved too, getting Khan on Bishops, and then Drake's also improved. So I have no clue what the regular season would be like if I didn't move.
What do you think you said your teammates you thought deserved to get the MVP, but what do you think they did to deserve that?
They were playing really solid. Like I know in once we put in Zap game 4, like he was playing really well. I just focused on playing around him, playing to his strengths, so that like everybody was playing the best that they could. And it just worked out really well for us. Siki was playing really good that series too. I know his PC had like a lot of issues going up to the finals and playoffs and everything. So it was great that even on his Xbox that he was playing on at the time, he was still able to perform and just show out in the series.
All right. Well, congratulations on taking the finals MVP. You had a great performance. And is there anyone you want to quickly shout out here to thank for the season or anyone like that?
Yeah, I definitely want to shout out Sticky and Zap. They played a huge part in the finals, and Meatwagon too. I forgot to mention him, but he popped off a lot in the first 3 games. He played really well too. Just all my teammates in general, just making me look better out on the field.
All right. So thank you and congratulations again on finals MVP.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move to our next award here, and this one is definitely an important one. Again, we've got the MVP for the Challenger League. We've got some great nominees coming your way. So sit back and enjoy some highlights. A crucial game in the series.
Yeah, definitely a crucial game. The Bishop's just getting a great goal there off a dunk.
Scented foam, just out of nowhere, coming with his dunk. Benji, a tough spot to be in. Foam reads it perfectly.
You're gonna need to see some great mechanical skill. You're gonna need to see some great demo plays in order for them to score.
Yeah, as you say that, Ventus with the great dribbling play.
Boy. He
All right, guys. So there you have your second MVP nominees. There we got Foam, Ventus, and 12 Ram. And obviously, these guys performed very well throughout the regular season. Definitely, all three of these guys are deserving for MVP. But as is usual, one guy stood out above the rest here, and that guy is once again Ventus. We're gonna bring him back in just a second here. Ventus was able to pull off the MVP award, taking the Finals MVP and the regular season MVP here. A dominating performance from him. 41 games played, 53 goals, averaging well over a goal a game. Also tacked on 39 assists, 65 saves, also over one save a game with 173 shots to boot there. So he was obviously a great performer there, and we're actually gonna bring this man right back, Ventus, back here again, and this time you are the regular season MVP. So my first question is, obviously now you've got both the MVP awards. What does that feel like to take the clean sweep there and take both MVPs?
It's crazy. It's a great feeling, honestly. I didn't realize that I was gonna get both. I thought that you guys were gonna choose 2 different players, like for prospect, but here I am.
Yeah, so here you are again, and you had a great season coming into this one, and something we asked Blazin earlier, and I kind of want to get your perspective on this is starting in the season, we talked about it. Season one of Nemesis. It's kind of a whole new thing. Maybe everyone's not used to like how it's gonna turn out and what it could really end up being. But like, what were your goals to kick off the regular season, and what were you kind of focused on throughout?
Well, initially, when I was first getting drafted, Hypernova actually came up and messaged me, and he was talking to me days before, and he was like, "I'm gonna pick you up on my team. I have second pick. We got this. Just like try to keep yourself on the down low so that I can snipe you first round, so nobody else can really get me." And I got a message from Natural, and he was like, "So, I was looking at you to pick you up on first round, and I didn't pay attention to see what draft pick he had, so I was just talking to him and saying like how my peak was like pretty high for Challenger League, and he goes, "Oh, I'm gonna pick you up then." and then I looked at his pick and he had first pick, and I was like, well, that's that's interesting. So then I got drafted on the Drakes, and when I first started with the Drakes, we slapped every team. I think we got 3 sweeps in a row, and it was like I thought we were gonna take the entire thing without any competition. And then our players started playing a little rocky, me included, especially against Samurai and Spectre at the time. And I decided that I think it would be a better opportunity for me to go to a different team. So I looked at Spectre and Samurai, who were both like top teams, and I actually lost to both of them. And I was gonna get traded onto Spectre, but issues with cap space did not allow that. So I think my goal just was to win. I wasn't really focused on anything else. Just trying to perform my best and take the big season 1 role.
I know you talked about it. You started off really high, and then you started hitting a rocky spot towards the middle. But what kept you motivated to perform at such a high level throughout the whole season, being as long as it is?
I was just focused on my own gameplay. I knew that if I was playing to my best ability, then my teammates would be able to play off of me and stuff. And it really threw off like the entire dynamic of the team. So recognizing that, I had to switch up how I played. And going to Samurai actually like helped me out a lot because I used to think that I was the only person that mattered on the team instead of like purposely making it so that my team could easily play around me, and it made it much easier to play.
Well, I know that you had a lot of great moments throughout the season, but for you, what was the most memorable moments that you had?
It was I think in playoffs I hit a nasty angle, a redirect that on was on stream, and nobody thought I touched it, but I knocked it down slightly under crossbar so I could score it, and I think it put us up 1-0 in the game, and we were leading in the series, so it gave us huge momentum. I think that was my favorite moment. It sucks that it wasn't like in the video, but
All right, yeah. So obviously a lot of great performances in the regular season, and we kind of talked about the finals run, but I want to talk more about your playoff run. You guys came into the playoffs as the 3 seed coming into this one, and what was your focus like as a team? Like what really kind of held you guys together chemistry wise, and what really propelled you guys through the playoffs to take the championship?
so we lost Hypernova, I think 1 or 2 games before the playoffs happened. So we were really shaky. Like we didn't know how to play with each other because our main lineup was completely gone. So we were always like looking to see who meshed the best, like who was able to play well with each other. And like we picked up a guy, Meatwagon, and he's actually one of my close friends that I knew. And he played really well. But it was just trying to figure out who worked best together in playoffs, even though like we didn't have any time to like fix our rotations or anything. We had to kind of learn it on the fly.
Yeah, and well, I know that you had great moments in the playoffs, but for the regular season, what do you think was the most difficult game for you?
I think the most difficult game was when we played Drakes when I was on Samurai because we got swept in that series, even though all the games were pretty close. It was just like a huge knockdown. It was like we're not where we thought we were, and we needed to focus on getting better and stuff. And that like propelled us forward and made us realize that we needed to work a lot, and like all ended up working really hard and stuff up to playoffs and took like just started playing better and better.
Looking a bit more in depth, who is the comms leader for your team?
I know I was spitting out everything I could trying to make life easier on my teammates. So I think that I was the majority of the comm leader. I would also like try to make sure everybody was staying calm and collected. Like against Samurai or the Samurai versus Drake's game in winners finals, I made a decision to sub out Siki because he was just like had a really bad mindset, and I could tell that he was just getting really mad at himself. So I gave him a game to cool down. And then he DC'd and his computer died. But overall, overall, I think that I was the comm leader and helped, and hopefully my call-outs helped my team. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, yeah, congratulations again. I know we already gave you some shout outs before, but so I'll give you this. What are you looking forward to next season coming into Nemesis? And obviously you definitely moved up in MMR, and what are you kind of looking forward to for season two?
I'm looking forward to being on higher teams and like getting that experience and just being able to play like in a higher like level. It's gonna be really interesting to see if I can compete and hopefully like I get a good teammates around me that I can work well off of and just learn this next season.
All right. Well, congratulations again, and best of luck going forward.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Ventus there, your Challenger League MVP. Big congratulations to him taking the sweep, the MVP and the Finals MVP. So big congratulations to him on that one. But next up, we are going to have our Finals MVP for the Rival League, and we've talked a little bit about these teams, and I know we kind of alluded to this earlier, but the Knights pulled off the finals win. A couple of great performers into that one. But the guy that really stood out to us, it was a close race. I gotta give a shout out to P Fox. He was right in this one. He definitely was close and deserving second on the Knights. But our finals MVP is going to go to Jump OS, the big man from Knights, able to take home the finals MVP. He had 9 goals in the finals, a certain amount in those games. I believe it was 6 games, so easily over a goal a game. Also had 5 assists, 10 saves, 20 shots, and was averaging 470 score in their games. Just absolutely popped off in that one, and he really performed well. So we're gonna bring this man in here. We have Jump joining us right here. Jump, congratulations on the Finals MVP.
Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, no problem. It's definitely an interesting series. What was kind of going through your mindset in those 6 games to where you had to go against the Dragons, who were one of the best teams in the regular season?
Well, admittedly, Dragons were a team that over the course of the season, I think everybody was really wary of. But going into playoffs, they were the first seed and were upset early by the Kings. So we weren't really sure what was happening with them. But after I know that our team watched them the night before qualify for grand finals through loser's side. And I mean, they've been solid forever. I run into Ryan O'Neal in ranked. Everybody knows who Els is in the Discord. And then there was just overall their team in the last couple of days were playing really solid. So we were just wary. We played our game, but we're aware of their strength.
So I have another question here. So I know this is often talked about between you guys. I know Bagels. I just saw him say it in the chat too. So it kind of reminded me a little bit. But you guys are some of the older players in the league here. Obviously, we got a young player base here. But you guys are kind of, Cooking Bagels often calls you guys the grandpas of Rocky League. So what is that kind of like, hanging out with some of the other older people in the league, and performing at such a high pace?
Well, initially our roster wasn't as old. We started off the season with our captain being Sunex, and he was going to be our monkey. And on our first conversation, like the night we met, we all were like, all right, who wants to bring the energy to our matches? And Sunex was immediately on it. And then he didn't even make it to the first game because he kept staying up for 28 hours at a time. So right off the rip, our team was like kind of playing from behind. We were playing with our first draft pick, our third draft pick, and our fourth draft pick. But because of our maybe our maturity, maybe some experience combined throughout the team, I think that honestly set us up better early on in the season because we got used to playing from behind, and just like talking to each other about what was happening and how it played out and affected us. And doing that early just really made it easier in the later games. Like just touched in the finals in a situation like that where we were very used to playing a team that was supposed to, could win, took the lead early, put us on our hind feet. Like it just became natural for us to work through that together. So I really like our team. We are pretty old by gaming standards, I guess you could say.
I know this is something that happened during the middle of season, but Jump, what was it like coming back from sickness that happened to you in the middle of the season, and what was like the biggest obstacle to get back into the gameplay and the flow of the teamwork?
Well, I guess again touching on the last point I made, because we right off the rip were fighting like against like some kind of strange odds that we weren't expecting. I think that when I had to leave in the middle of the season for a period of, I think it was about 3 weeks, the team just kept crushing it. I mean, our results weren't entirely there because we weren't expecting some of the things. There were definitely days where Bagel's internet was dead. I was too sick to play. We had to play with some other players throughout our organization. So honestly, it came down to like a lot of people's contributions. And then honestly, coming back, like it wasn't the hardest thing. No diss on anyone who's working really hard to get to this league, but I'm lucky enough to play with people like you, Linty, and Bagels, and other players that when I came back, and my own teammates who are a higher level than myself, coming back and being able to hop into that level really made the getting back into it easy. And luckily, my teammates trusted me and they let me hop right back into it.
Well, out of all your experiences during the finals, what do you think, or who do you think on your team was able to keep everyone, calm and cool during the pressure that you had?
I think we all got to this level of comfort. Now, like Bagels is the most chill person ever. We would all be like getting intense, and I think I heard him pop off one time this whole season on a goal. But like for the most part, he's the most laid back guy. It's hard to get him to get intense on things. And then like you could tell with P Fox, he's got this level of professionalism. He's communicating. Even when we're down, it's good to have players that will tell you when you make mistakes and mean it genuinely. And him and I have that same mentality. And again, my props to my team, because I am the lowest skill of all of them, probably the most competitive experience. So when I got put in that like captain role and I was like, Bagels, you're better than me. What do we do? He's like, I don't know, do whatever you want, man. It really helped that like the rest of them were totally down to just say, what do we do? Like we leaned on each other, knowing that like there was definitely gaps in everybody's skills and their mindsets, everything. Even players like LJ, who stepped up super huge early in the season and looked like they were about to be the clutchest 4th-round pick, and then like himself, like, and we get used to this conversation, so he knows it's not a diss. Like you can't always play as good as you can, like the best you can. So having to work through that and knowing each other about it, just leaning on each other, really made the difference.
Yeah, so I have a question, a couple of questions, actually 2 questions about your playoff run here. So obviously, you guys came into the playoffs. You were, the number 2 seed. You took down Arrival in your last game in the Eastern Conference Championship game to take the number 2 seed. So what was your mindset coming off of that series and heading into playoffs?
We were pretty comfortable. Arrival was because Linty is a friend of Bagels, and we've all queued threes together a couple of times. Like we worked really early in the season together and gave each other feedback. Linty casted a lot of games, and his analysis is fantastic. So like we had help from outside sources, particularly Arrival, funny enough, who we ended up facing in these key moments for the wild card spot in playoffs, or I guess ultimately for the 2nd seed. And just various times where we really needed an important matchup, and luckily Arrival like brought that to us each time, particularly the game 7 that they gave us in playoffs. And because we were so comfortable with them, it put us in a really good mindset of like, all right, we won an important game 7. We did it in a matchup that felt really good, and that we weren't, we were confident in because our matchups had said we would win. But like, you're always in the back of your mind as a competitor, like, oh, we've won all of these matchups, we're bound to lose eventually. So we just kind of tried to put that out. Same with the Dragons. They were the same type of situation where it's like, all right, losing is inevitable at some point if you slip up. So you need to like stay on it. And we just like one goal at a time, one game at a time. When we were behind, especially into the playoffs, when there's not a lot of games, winners and losers side is short. So that was a huge factor, was just staying composed and learning that from teams like Arrival early on in the season, and later seeing them again to check on that and be like, we still got it.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of talked about a couple of your playoff matches. You obviously faced off against a rival. You faced off against the Dragons and also against the Kings. So, which one, if you had to pick, which one gave you guys the most difficult challenge, and what was the hardest series for you guys?
I would say again probably the Arrival series because there was that little bit of anxiety of we've beaten them in all of our other matchups. Our scrims against them went well, but I know that Linty's intelligent and he knows our play because he's aware of it, and that like that's my own skill. I'm not a talented player. I do things off of understanding. So I knew that they had the abilities that we could they had the ability to throw us, and it was early. So that going to game 7, when that hit game 7 was one of those like, okay, let's try not to blow this because if we don't, we're pretty set moving forward. And Kings upsetting Dragons was huge. They honestly they helped us a ton because playing Dragons twice would have just probably brutal. And that probably affected the Dragons' momentum. No matter who won on loser's side, whether it was Kings coming up after losing to us or Dragons coming up after trying to make the run back, it played in our favor. So playoffs once we beat a rival was a lot more comfortable for us, I think, despite how stressful grand finals always are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congratulations on the finals MVP. Do you have anybody you want to shout out? Anyone you want to thank for your season and for this award?
Pretty much everybody who was involved in our org. I mean, the org E did pretty well over the season. The whole org was kind of active right from the rip. We had good management when we all got together, and we're just like, just tell us when to show up. It freed us up to compete. So thanks to management, whether it was you because you took over halfway through, or just our own group trying to keep ourselves together. My teammates were dope, every single one of them. All of our competition was pretty cool. The ones that we had a healthy beef with kept us motivated, and the ones that were really good partners in training also same thing, very motivational. But yeah, otherwise just the league. And honestly, I'm kind of bummed because I was going for least accurate player, and then I did really good. So I kind of missed my objective this season with having a ton of shots and no goals. But oh well.
Hey, there's always season 2.
Yeah, I can always miss the net more next season. Good point.
There you go.
Good
So congratulations again, and thanks for stopping by.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for the league. Thank you everybody who's viewing. Thank you everyone who played. This has been a great time. You guys really bringing it out.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, that was Jump there, your finals MVP. We're gonna take a look at some of his highlights real quick before we get into our final award of the night. All right, so that was Jump. Much love to Jump for the kind words, and congratulations again on him winning the MVP for the finals. So with that being said, we are moving to our final award of the night. We've got the Rival League MVP about to be announced here. Definitely a big one to be looking forward to. And we've got a couple of candidates here. So we are gonna run those candidates here real quick. We got 3 of them coming your way. So sit back and here's a look at our candidates. Reaper, he's got a hat trick already, really putting the team on his back, trying to tie the series up as we head going on. He's got another one. Oh my goodness. Bubbly Reaper, have a game.
Yeah, Bubbly Reaper, great shot from him. See it off the kickoff. Just getting a good touch, and Bubbly just taking a nice shot.
Reaper trying to get in the way. Edwin just put that one towards the net. Ryan O'Neal trying to redirect it in. He does. What a shot for Ryan O'Neal. He puts it in, and the Dragons retake the lead. Post there puts it a little bit high. Might have had the open net to shoot at. Just couldn't do it. And Linty's going to turn around and bang that one home. A hat trick for him, and a 3-goal lead for a rival. All right, so those are your nominees for the Rival League regular season MVP. We got Bubbly Reaper, Ryan O'Neal, and Linty and are our three nominees. And yeah, we have Linty in the call right here. Linty, what do you have to, I'm gonna bring it to you right here quick before we announce the winner. What do you have to say about these other candidates and your performance in the regular season?
I'm just super fortunate I got to play with the team I did. I had some really good players around me. They competed every night. I know they kind of put up with me and my competitive side, and like we can all get a little bit over the top, but I'm glad that they stuck it out with me. They placed me in a good spot to compete and do well, and I'm just glad I was a part of this whole scene.
Well, I appreciate it, and yeah. So obviously, we got three really solid candidates. This was probably one of the tougher ones to for us to decide. All three of these guys really, kind of helped their team, and they, wouldn't have been the same without them. In this one, and our winner for MVP of the rival league is going to go to Ryan O'Neal from the Dragons. So congratulations to him. Unfortunately, he's not available for an interview tonight. So we'll just talk a little bit about his stats and a little bit about his performance in the regular season, and we'll take a look at a quick video here in just a second. But we got 62 games from Ryan O'Neal, an absolute workhorse in this one. 43 goals, 45 assists, 93 saves, and 157 shots. And Ryan O'Neal, performer from the get go on this team. And let's take a look at his MVP video. All right, so there you can see the highlights from Ryan O'Neal. Obviously, a huge performance from him, and I've been looking at this guy throughout the regular season, and he really kind of put the team on his back there, and he played played a lot of games and really performed well for his team there. And I know Linty, I'm going to bring it to you as our rival league expert. You played against Ryan O'Neal quite a bit. What do you have to say about his talents and how he performed for the Dragons, getting them to 10-2?
He's such a solid player. He's so hard to get by when you got the ball and you're trying to push it up the field. But if you give him any space on the other end when he's on offense, he's gonna score. He's gonna make plays. And then he has really good teammates around him. L's super solid player, really good about creating opportunities for his team. And then you have Edwin. If he gets set up well, he's gonna make a lot of shots. He's like their offensive threat. Like those two players, they're good about setting him up. And they were all super solid play around each other, great chemistry, and it was fun to play against them.
Yeah, for sure. Some great performances all around. And, we got to give a huge congratulations to Ryan O'Neal. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here with us tonight. So we're just going to give him a congratulations and wish him the best of luck coming into season 2. And speaking of season 2, we have got your season 2 preview coming your guys' way right now. That is going to pop up on the stream here in just a second for our season 2 preview. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming your guys' way coming into season 2, and you guys can kind of see a couple of those really important dates on the stream right now. Obviously, the most important thing, if you guys haven't already, if for some reason you're watching the stream and you are a player or free agent in season 1 and you haven't filled out the interest form, what are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. You need to fill out that form ASAP if you want to participate in season 2. Put it in chat there. Just click on that link. Go head over there and fill out that season 2 interest form if you want to participate in season 2 and you're a free agent or player who's looking to come back for season 2. If you're someone that's new to the league and you haven't participated before, you have to fill out the player registration form, otherwise known as PRF. I'm going to also link that there for you guys. So check that out if you guys haven't already. Make sure you guys get those filled out because season 2 is going to be crazy. Season 1 was already crazy as is, and we have a lot of cool stuff coming your guys' way in this one. Season 2 format getting released on the 18th. So that is going to be something to kind of look out for. I'm super excited to release the format. We're working hard behind the scenes, making our MMR boundaries, our MMR caps. So all the stuff's going to be released then. What our leagues are doing, how many leagues we're going to have, how many teams we're going to have, how many GMs we're going to have, the whole shebang there. It's all going to be released Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. So stick around and make sure you guys are paying attention to that. Otherwise, a couple of other important dates for stream-wise. We've got the drafts coming your guys' way. Starting on June 4th, we've got the Prospect League draft. And then heading into the Challenger League draft, Rival League draft to follow those. So those are definitely a couple of cool dates to look out for. And then the Season 2 opening day, the moment we're all waiting for during this long off season, that is June 15th. And is definitely a lot to do before then, but it should be a lot of fun. And I want to ask each one of you guys. I'm going to start here with Linty. Linty, what are you looking forward to coming into season 2?
I want a lot of these players to come back. I had a great time competing against them. I know my teammates; they were super fun to play with. I want to see how this is going to grow. I know after such a successful first season, the name's going to get out there. I want to see what kind of talent that brings in. I want to see what kind of players we're going to be able to face against in season 2. And I just want this competitive scene to grow because I have a lot of fun being here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm also hoping that we continue to grow like we have. It's been super crazy. And again, we can't thank you guys enough for all the support you guys have shown us. I want to bring it to you, Chipmunk, now. Chipmunk, what are you looking forward to as we head into the second season of Nemesis?
I'm really looking forward to that potential 4th league if we do have that. Not confirmed yet, but we will know on Monday if we do have that. But if it does happen, I'm really looking forward to that, and I just can't wait for the drafts in the next season.
Yeah, for sure. And then Eminem, what are you looking forward to as we go into our next season?
Well, I'm just looking forward to winning. I can't wait to win season 2. It's already guaranteed. Season 1 was a fluke for Eminem BP, but season 2, I'm looking forward to winning. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, I respect that. Eminem MVP coming your guys' way to Nemesis League near you, I guess. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And I'm curious to see how all these teams perform coming into the next season. And yeah, it should be a fun time. Can't wait to get that format out to you guys. Should be a lot of fun. But we got one final thing for you guys to end off the stream. Chipmunk, you whipped up a surprise for us, and I think we've got one final thing, and I think that's pretty much going to do it for us. I think it's going to do it for us from here. But stay tuned for this quick video. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks.
What is going on, everybody? We are here. What is going on, everybody? We are back. 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 What is going on, everybody? We are back.
fools.